Hi, and thanks for logging on to the daily DVAR HALACHA. And here's a brand new HALACHA for you. It's for Thursday, the 15th day of August, the 14th day of Av, which means that Friday is going to be the 15th day of Av. And I want to talk about that with you now to give you another fascinating reason as to why Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, this Friday, is considered a festive day. The only way halachically that you'll experience the festivity is that we won't recite Tachanun, but otherwise, it has some very special nature, but it's not a Yom Tov, not the kind that we're used to. So here's one of the fascinating things that happened. It actually is going to sound like a sad story, but here goes. After the Romans had destroyed Jerusalem, there were still a lot of Jews huddled up in the city of Beitar, a lot of Jews. And the city of Beitar was actually thriving for quite a while, really thriving. And Judaism was going on there in the most wonderful of ways. But unfortunately, there came a time when the Romans decided, for reasons we won't go into right now, that they needed to attack the city of Beitar also. And there was a horrible, horrible massacre in the city of Beitar. And it happened on the 9th of Av, by the way. Not that year, years and years later. But on the 9th of Av, there was a terrible massacre in the city of Beitar. I mean, just to give you one description of it, the rabbis tell us that the blood was so deep with all of the slain bodies that the blood went as high as horses' necks. Okay, so you understand it was horrific. Okay, so far that has nothing to do with Beitar, the 15th of Av. But let me continue in the story. One of the conquerors had this like wicked, wicked idea, and his idea was that he wanted to give himself a beautiful garden, and the garden would be surrounded by walls, and the walls would be made out of the bodies of the slain Jews of Beitar. Go figure what kind of monster that must have been. But that was his enjoyment. And the Jews who did stay alive like begged them and said, you know, how could you do that? The Jews believe in full burial for a body. How could you just leave the bodies like that? And for a number of years, he insisted on having the bodies lie there in piles all around his garden. What a twisted kind of person he must have been. And he left it like that for a number of years. Finally, there came a time, years later, and it was on the 15th of Av, okay? On the 15th of Av, years later, permission was granted for the Jews to finally bury the bodies that had been surrounding the garden of that evil man. And that's a certain type of happiness, but then an astounding miracle happened. When they went to recover the bodies, they found that not one of the bodies had decomposed. Not one of the bodies had decomposed. They had been exposed to the wind, the sun, the rain, and everything for a number of years, and not one body decomposed. It's an enormous, enormous miracle. It must have been probably some kind of sign from God that there are reasons why suffering happens, but I'm with you in the suffering. Look at this enormous miracle. Many, many, many bodies that didn't decompose for a number of years. And this is going to astound you. In honor of this enormous miracle, the rabbis instituted a fourth bracha in benching. Benching used to just have 3 brachos. And the fourth bracha, which has the words Hatov HaMeitiv in them, God is good and does good to the Jewish people, that was instituted because of this miracle. And it happened on the 15th of Av, and that's one of the very interesting reasons that the 15th of Av is considered a festive day. Now you know. Thanks for logging on, and log on again tomorrow on the 15th of Av for more. Bye-bye.